Welcome to AI Daily Deep Dive, the show that takes today's top AI news and kind of tries to figure out what it all means for you.
Yeah,
And we should just mention up front that this whole deep dive, the research, the insights, even our conversation here, it's all been put together by AI.
that's right. We're coming to you live from Tuesday, March 25th, 2025, and we've got a lot to cover today.
We do.
Some really fascinating AI developments.
Yeah, so we've been looking at a whole bunch of different sources, news articles, reports, all kinds of things to bring you the really important stuff when it comes to AI.
Absolutely.
So we're talking about things like we found a brand new AI model that's being called a real thinker.
Yeah, I saw that.
We're also looking at how to use AI and human skills together in the best way possible for business.
Yeah, that's smart.
Also, some really surprising ways that AI is changing how we think as humans.
I'm curious about that.
And even how AI could make self-driving cars a lot more affordable, which would be amazing.
Yeah, for sure.
We'll even touch on using AI for something as personal as those college admission essays,
Oh, yeah, that's a hot topic.
which is kind of a big deal if you're a student or a parent right now.
Absolutely.
So what's helpful and what's a definite no-go?
Right.
Really, our goal today is pretty simple. We want to take all this information and pull out the really important stuff, the unexpected things, and give you the insights that you need so that you can stay informed without feeling completely overwhelmed.
And don't want to overload anyone.
Right, let's dive in.
Let's get started with maybe some seriously advanced AI.
Yeah.
Google DeepMind.
Yeah,
They just announced their latest model,
I saw that.
Gemini 2.5.
Okay,
They're saying it's their most intelligent yet.
right.
And
how do they even measure that?
it's hard to say.
Right.
But the word on the street is that it's a real thinking model,
Okay.
which is pretty interesting.
So it can actually reason.
That's the idea.
So instead of just like spitting out an answer, it's actually going through some kind of thought process.
Well, yeah, if you think about, I guess, the older AI model,
Right.
they've been really good at recognizing patterns.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
recognizing faces in pictures or figuring out what you might buy next.
Right.
But Gemini 2.5 is supposed to go further.
Okay.
Like, it can analyze information,
Mm.
figure out the logical connections, understand all those subtle nuances of a problem,
Uh-huh.
and then make decisions based on that understanding.
So it's understanding why instead of just what.
Exactly. It's less about just seeing what's there and more about understanding, like, why it is and what could be.
So is that kind of like, I don't know, instead of just identifying a traffic jam, it might understand why the traffic jam is happening
Right.
and maybe even suggest like a better route based on all of that knowledge?
That's the direction they're heading in.
Okay.
And this isn't a totally new concept.
Right.
Gemini 2.5 actually builds on what they learned from earlier models, like Gemini 2.0 flash thinking.
Okay.
You remember that one?
Right.
Okay.
Vaguely. Yeah.
So they've taken those previous advancements and they've made some significant improvements to the core AI brain, if you will,
Okay.
and also to how it's trained after that kind of initial learning phase.
I see.
Yeah. And DeepMind's ultimate goal is to actually build this reasoning ability into all of their future AI
Oh, that's interesting.
so that it can tackle, even more and more complex challenges that need a deeper understanding of context.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's exciting stuff.
It is. And there's actually already a test version out there that's kind of making waves.
Yeah, the Gemini 2.5 Pro,
Yeah, have you heard about this?
it's still in an experimental phase,
Okay.
but it's already causing a stir.
Yeah.
It's currently at the very top of the LMArena leaderboard.
Okay, and remind me what that is.
It's kind of like a popularity contest for AI models.
Okay.
So people compare different AI outputs and they say which ones they like best.
Interesting.
And the fact that 2.5 Pro is #1
Right.
suggests that, at least according to these human evaluations, it's performing at a very high level in terms of its quality and overall smarts.
Okay, cool. And it's not just about general knowledge, right? I heard something about it being particularly good at stuff like coding and even advanced science.
Absolutely. 2.5 Pro is exceeding expectations in tests that measure its abilities in those areas.
Right.
Coding, math, scientific reasoning.
Okay.
For instance, it's achieved top-tier results in benchmarks like GPQA and AIME 2025.
Yeah.
Those are really challenging exams even for professionals in those fields.
Okay.
And get this, it even scored an impressive 18.8% on something called Humanity's Last Exam,
Wow.
which is designed to test human-level reasoning and knowledge across a huge range of subjects.
I mean, that's getting close to what a person might score.
It really is. It's pushing the boundaries of what we thought AI could do.
Yeah.
And what's really remarkable is that it's achieving this higher accuracy without having to rely on any extra tricks during the testing phase,
Okay.
like having to generate multiple answers and picking the most frequent one. This suggests that there's been a real improvement in its fundamental ability to reason effectively.
So it's thinking better, basically.
Essentially, yes.
Wow, and especially for anyone who works with code, like this could really be a game changer for developers.
You got a Gemini 2.5 is showing some really exciting progress in coding.
Uh-huh.
It's showing a knack for creating these really visually appealing web applications
Oh, wow.
and developing what they call agentic code applications.
And remind me what that is.
It's AI that can write and run code independently to accomplish a goal.
Oh, that's interesting.
And it can even edit existing code.
Okay.
And on the SW Bench verified benchmark, which is like the gold standard for evaluating these agentic coding skills,
Right.
it achieved a score of 63.8% using this custom setup.
So 63.8% on that test, that's pretty impressive, right?
It really is. But put it into more practical terms.
Yeah.
This model can now generate working code for very specific requests. Imagine you just give it a simple instruction, one line of text, and it can create the code for an entire video game.
Wow.
That kind of capability could really speed up development and open up a lot of new creative possibilities.
Okay, so it's not just limited to text, right? It can handle different kinds of information.
Absolutely, building on the strengths of the earlier Gemini models.
Right.
Version 2.5 has what's called native multimodality,
Oh, yeah.
meaning it can process and understand all sorts of different data formats, including text, audio, images, video, and even entire code repositories.
It's like having access to everything at once.
It kind of is.
Okay.
And it also has a much larger memory, so to speak.
Okay.
It has this long context window.
Okay.
Right now, it can handle up to 1 million tokens. And tokens are like the basic units of text and code.
Okay.
But they're planning to increase that to 2 million tokens pretty soon.
Wow.
And this expanded context allows it to tackle those really complex problems that require information from many different sources.
So if you're dealing with huge amounts of data or these really complex problems, this could be a really powerful tool.
Yeah.
When will people actually be able to use this?
So right now, the experimental Gemini 2.5 Pro model,
Right.
it's available through Google AI Studio and the Gemini app
Okay.
for, people who want to try out the latest and greatest.
Yeah, the cutting edge stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And Google also announced that it's going to be integrated into their Vertex AI platform,
Okay.
which is their AI service for businesses.
Right.
And that should happen pretty soon.
Okay.
And we'll be getting more details on pricing in the coming weeks.
All right, so I guess Google's ultimate goal here is to make this something that businesses can use to solve real-world problems.
That's the main idea.
Okay.
They're hoping to combine this advanced reasoning,
Right.
the coding skills, and that ability to just understand huge amounts of information to make Gemini 2.5 a key player in the next generation of AI.
So they think it could really benefit companies across many different industries.
That's what they're saying.
Okay, so we've just talked about some really incredible advancements in AI, but I want to shift gears for a second and talk about something a little different.
Yep, go for it.
There's some talk about where AI might not be the best solution.
Right.
And there was a recent article in Forbes that talked about 5 key areas where businesses should be really careful about just letting AI take over completely.
I think that's a really important point to consider.
Yeah.
I mean, even with all the incredible things that AI can do,
Right.
are there some essential human elements of business that we risk losing if we become too reliant on it?
Right. It's like, do we lose our humanity a little?
Yeah. And the Forbes article actually makes a strong argument for keeping human control in these specific areas to protect what makes a business unique and authentic.
Right.
Because the big concern they raise is that by automating everything,
Yeah.
companies could actually end up losing their edge by getting rid of the very things that make them stand out.
Right. So if everyone's using the same AI for everything, then how do you differentiate yourself?
Exactly.
So what are those 5 areas where humans should stay in charge?
Well, the first one they highlight is core beliefs.
Okay.
They argue that, especially for entrepreneurs,
Right.
their personal brand is deeply connected to their own unique perspectives and life
Yeah.
experiences.
It's their story.
Right, exactly. And while AI can mimic a certain tone and structure,
Uh-huh.
it can't truly replicate that genuine authenticity that comes from overcoming personal challenges and learning from those experiences.
Yeah.
And sharing those real human stories is actually what builds trust. and help set a business apart.
Right, you connect with the human, not the algorithm.
Exactly.
So what's the next one?
Number 2 is hard decisions.
Okay.
And the article recognizes that AI can be really helpful for analyzing data
Yeah.
to help inform decisions.
Right.
But it lacks that gut feeling, that emotional intelligence, and,
Yeah.
the years of accumulated wisdom that often guide those really big business calls.
Right.
Things like launching a new product, who to hire, or even when to say no to an opportunity.
Yep.
So they suggest using AI for the analysis,
Right.
but letting the human founders make those final decisions.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes you just have a feeling about something that the numbers don't really show.
Exactly, and that's valuable.
Okay, what's number 3?
Number 3 is values and vision.
Okay.
And this refers to those fundamental principles that define what a company stands for
Right.
and its overall mission.
It's their purpose.
Exactly. And while AI can help communicate these values,
Yeah.
their initial creation and ongoing development really require human reflection, passion, and a commitment to those principles.
Yeah.
Because handing this over to AI risks creating a business that feels disconnected and ultimately uninspiring.
It's like trying to outsource your soul.
Yeah, kind of.
What are the last 2?
So the 4th one is personal connection.
Okay.
And they emphasize that in the business world, relationships are everything.
Yeah.
Right? People like to buy from and work with people they know, trust, and like.
Right.
And while AI can automate some parts of communication,
Right.
it can't replace that genuine warmth, empathy, and active listening.
Right.
That's essential for building rapport and trust.
Especially with those key clients and partners.
Exactly. That human touch is still so important.
Yeah. You can't build a loyal customer base with just automated responses.
You got it.
The
Okay, so the final one.
5th area is creative risk.
Okay.
And AI algorithms are designed to find solutions that are kind of safe and based on existing data.
Right.
So they tend to avoid those more unconventional ideas.
Right.
What they call creative weirdness in the article,
Okay.
which is often where truly innovative breakthroughs come from.
Right, so AI's playing it safe.
Kind of, yeah. And so they're encouraging entrepreneurs to trust their own instincts
Yeah.
when it comes to those out-of-the-box ideas
Yeah.
that could have a really big impact.
Okay, so what they're saying is not to avoid AI entirely,
Right.
but to be smart about how you use it.
Absolutely. It's about finding that right balance,
Uh-huh.
where you can leverage AI's strengths to make what humans do even better,
Yeah.
rather than trying to replace human input altogether.
Right.
It's all about working together.
So AI enhances what humans can do. It doesn't replace them.
That's the idea.
Okay, cool. Now I want to talk about how all this AI stuff is affecting us as humans.
Okay.
There's a really cool study out there
Yeah.
that looks at this idea of AI as a cybernetic teammate.
Oh, yeah, I read about that.
What do you think about
I
that?
think it's fascinating.
Yeah.
So this study, it's called the Cybernetic Teammate, a field experiment on generative AI reshaping teamwork and expertise.
That's a mouthful.
I know, right? But anyway, it looks at the real-world effects of how AI is changing the way we think and the way we work together.
Okay.
And it was done with a big group of professionals at Procter & Gamble
Right.
between May and July of last year.
Okay.
And the findings are really quite something.
Yeah, what kind of increase did they see?
Well, the study found that individuals who are using AI in their work saw an average boost in their productivity of about 37%.
37%. Yeah, it's pretty significant.
Yeah.
And even more impressively, the teams that were collaborating with AI outperformed teams that weren't using AI by a whopping 40%.
That's huge.
It is.
Yeah.
And a lot of the participants in the study reported that they felt more enthusiastic
Okay.
and even less frustrated when they were working with AI.
I can see that.
Yeah, and this led the researchers to kind of think of AI not just as a simple tool,
Right.
but as this cybernetic teammate.
It's like a coworker.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
One that actively contributes to goals and actually enhances expertise.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting. But, there are also some potential downsides,
Right.
some things that we need to be cautious about in the long run.
What are those?
Well, while the immediate benefits seem pretty clear, the study also raises some really important questions
Okay.
about the potential long-term effects on things like how much we trust AI,
Yeah.
how we develop our own skills, our creativity, our emotional well-being,
Right.
and even our capacity for independent thinking. There's a real worry that we could become too reliant on AI.
Right. And what were some of the specific risks that they pointed out?
One of the key risks is this thing they call cognitive offloading.
Okay.
And the idea here is that if we constantly rely on AI to do our thinking for us,
Yeah.
our own abilities in those areas could actually weaken.
It's like if you don't use it, you lose it.
Exactly.
Right.
And the study actually found that people who rely heavily on AI
Yeah.
to come up with ideas and solutions might actually see a decline in their own independent judgment.
That makes sense. If you don't exercise those mental muscles, they could get weaker.
That's the concern.
What else?
Another concern is the potential for a decrease in creativity and originality.
Okay.
Because AI, by its nature, learns from existing patterns and data,
Right.
meaning that AI-generated solutions might not be all that original.
They're just kind of regurgitating what's already out there.
Exactly.
Right.
So over-relying on AI for things like brainstorming could actually stifle innovation.
And then there's the whole danger of just blindly trusting what the AI tells us.
Absolutely.
Right.
If people don't bother to check or verify the information that comes from AI,
Yeah.
they could be exposed to bias, inaccurate information, or just flawed logic.
Right.
And that can weaken their own ability to think critically.
But they did say that AI could help our critical thinking skills.
They did?
Right, if used in the right way.
Exactly. It's not all doom and gloom.
Right.
So when we use AI actively and critically,
Yeah.
it can actually be a really valuable tool for boosting our thinking abilities.
Right.
So if we treat AI as more of a thought partner, someone we can bounce ideas off of,
Right.
whose responses we question and challenge,
Yeah.
and whose suggestions we can refine.
It's a collaborative process.
Exactly.
Okay.
And the study found that professionals who used AI this way
Yeah.
were actually able to learn new things
Okay.
and explore new topics more effectively.
So they were able to broaden their horizons.
That's exactly.
It shows that AI does have the potential to expand our capabilities,
Right.
but it requires us to actively participate in the process.
We can't be passive.
Right.
So what's the best way to approach this? How do we find that balance?
The researchers had a few key suggestions.
Okay.
First, we should always question and try to improve upon the answers that AI gives us.
Right.
Second, it's crucial to double-check any information it provides,
Yeah.
just to make sure it's accurate.
Don't take it at face value.
Exactly. And third, we need to focus on developing our own skills by actively engaging with AI and not just passively accepting what it gives us.
Right.
And finally, they stress the importance of using AI strategically to support our own judgment,
Yeah.
especially in areas that require creativity and independent thought.
So it all comes down to how we use it.
It really does.
Right.
Whether AI makes us smarter or duller really depends on our choices.
On how we choose to interact with it.
Exactly. And this study really highlights the need for more research.
To fully understand the long-term effects of this technology on our human abilities.
It's like a relationship.
It kind of is. It's one that's constantly evolving.
Yeah.
And we need to learn as we go.
Absolutely. Okay, now I want to talk about something that could change the way we get around
Okay.
self-driving cars.
Yeah.
It's been in the news a lot lately.
It has. And there's been some really exciting news about how to make them much more affordable.
Okay.
Using AI camera technology.
I'm intrigued. Tell me more.
So researchers have created a new AI-powered camera system
Okay.
called MonoFG.
MonoFG. Okay.
And it's designed to be just as good as the existing LiDAR-based systems, but at a fraction of the cost.
Wow.
Which could be a big deal for making self-driving cars accessible to a much wider range of people.
So remind me, what are LiDAR systems?
LiDAR, those are those high-tech laser scanners
Right.
that create those detailed 3D maps of the surroundings.
Yeah.
So what's the price difference we're talking about?
Exactly.
So traditional LiDAR systems can run upwards of $75,000 per unit.
Wow, that's a lot.
It is, but MonoFG
Yeah.
is estimated to cost around $300 a unit.
That's a huge difference.
It is. It's a massive difference.
Okay.
And this technology was developed by researchers from Australian Catholic University, Shanghai University, and Zhejiang University in China.
So they're using just a single camera and it's supposed to be as good as LiDAR.
Yeah, it sounds kind of crazy, right?
Yeah.
But that's where the AI comes in.
Okay.
So MonoFG uses a single camera,
Mm-hmm.
kind of like how humans can perceive depth with just one eye,
Right.
although we usually use two eyes for better accuracy.
Sure.
So through these very advanced AI algorithms, it allows the car to see objects
Okay.
and navigate those complex environments with surprising accuracy,
Wow.
all without needing those expensive LiDAR sensors.
So you're telling me we could actually see much cheaper self-driving cars soon?
That's the potential.
Wow. Okay, so how much cheaper are we talking?
Well, to give you an idea, the Honda Legend Hybrid EX which was one of the first cars with level 3 autonomous driving,
Right.
was priced at around $65,000 US.
Okay.
And one of the researchers behind MonoFG,
Yeah.
Associate Professor Wyatt Hussein,
Okay.
he suggests that this technology could potentially make self-driving cars even more affordable than a Toyota Land Cruiser.
Really?
Yeah. Which would be a huge step towards making them more mainstream.
Wow. That's amazing. Okay, so it sounds like this isn't just theoretical, right? It's been tested in the real world.
Yes, it has.
Okay.
MonoG has been put through its paces
Okay.
using real-world driving data, and the research has been published in ACM transactions on autonomous and adaptive systems.
Okay.
And these tests showed its accuracy and its overall performance,
Okay.
suggesting it could be a real alternative to those LiDAR systems.
So it works.
Seems to. And notably, it actually achieved the top ranking in detecting cyclists,
Oh, wow.
which shows how important safety is to the developers.
Okay. And I mean, safety is probably the biggest concern when we talk about self-driving cars. So how does MonoFG address that?
Well, it's designed with a really strong focus on safety.
Okay.
It can process information at a speed of 18 frames per second,
Okay.
which is actually faster than the average human reaction time.
Really?
So this allows the car to make those really split-second decisions
Right.
in critical situations,
Yeah.
helping to prevent accidents
Yeah.
by quickly and accurately identifying pedestrians, cyclists, and other vehicles.
Okay. So the goal isn't just to make self-driving cars cheaper, but also to make sure that they're actually safe out there on the roads.
Precisely. Associate Professor Hussein really emphasizes that the system prioritizes reducing accidents through this smarter, real-time decision-making.
Okay. So what are the bigger implications if this technology really takes off?
Well, the implications can be pretty significant.
Yeah.
More affordable self-driving cars could make this technology available to a much larger part of the population,
Right.
which could impact things like urban transportation logistics and personal mobility.
It could change how we get around completely.
It really could. And it could also help alleviate traffic congestion,
Yeah.
improve road safety, and even contribute to environmental sustainability in the long run.
Interesting.
And its lower cost could also make autonomous driving a reality in developing countries that might not be able to afford the pricier technologies.
Right. Okay, so what's next for MonoFG?
Well, they're still working on it.
Okay.
Research and development is ongoing,
Okay.
with a focus on further enhancing its capabilities and refining the AI algorithms.
You're going to keep making it better?
Exactly. And I think this international collaboration shows just how powerful it can be to bring different experts together
Yeah,
to tackle these complex problems.
absolutely. Okay, last but not least, I want to talk about something that's on a lot of people's minds right now.
Okay.
AI and college admissions essays.
Yeah,
A lot of students and parents are wondering about this.
for sure.
So what's the advice on using AI for those really important essays?
So the general consensus right now is that while AI can be a helpful tool in the process, students shouldn't rely on it completely to write those college admission or scholarship essays.
Right, so they shouldn't just let the AI write the whole thing.
Exactly. Because the point of these essays is to showcase a student's unique personality, character, and experiences
Right.
in a way that goes beyond just grades and test scores.
Okay, so it's about showing who they are as a person.
Exactly. And Will Geiger from Scholarships 360 points out that
Okay.
these essays are a crucial opportunity for students to connect directly with admissions officers and scholarship committees
Okay.
to share their individual story and their values.
Right.
But the problem with essays that are completely written by AI is that they lack that human touch.
Right.
They often sound generic,
Okay.
like they were written by a machine.
Yeah, and you can tell, right?
You can often tell.
Yeah.
Because the language just doesn't sound natural or authentic,
Right.
and that can actually raise red flags for admissions committees.
So it ends up being counterproductive.
It can be.
Okay.
And one student, Madeline Ronk,
She actually made a conscious decision to avoid using ChatGPT for her transfer application essay because she wanted to make sure it was genuinely her own work.
Right.
And that aligns with what most experts are advising.
Okay.
Scholarship decisions, in particular, often come down to the personal connection that the committee feels when they read about a student's experiences, and that's something that AI just can't replicate.
And have they done any surveys or gathered any information on how students are actually using AI for these essays?
Yes, they have.
Okay.
And a recent survey found that while nearly half of college applicants are using AI for things like brainstorming,
Okay.
and outlining.
Okay.
About 20% are actually using it to generate those first drafts.
Okay.
But the key thing to remember is that those AI-written essays haven't actually been very successful
Right.
in helping students get scholarships or into their top choice colleges.
So where can AI be helpful in this process without overstepping?
Well, AI can be a really useful tool in the early stages.
So it can help with things like coming up with essay topics,
Mm-hmm.
organizing thoughts into a structured outline,
Yeah.
and even checking grammar and improving the clarity of writing.
Okay.
And there are even platforms like Packback
Okay.
that use AI to give real-time feedback on things like passive voice and grammatical errors.
So it's more of an editor or a brainstorming partner?
Exactly. It's
Yeah.
about enhancing the writing, not replacing it.
Right.
And Craig Booth from Packback,
Okay.
he emphasizes the ethical use of AI,
Uh-huh.
encouraging students to develop their own voice
Right.
while using AI responsibly as a helpful aid.
Okay, cool. Now, what about all those AI detection tools that colleges are supposedly using?
Yeah.
How reliable are those?
So that's still a bit of a gray area.
Yeah.
The technology exists,
Okay.
but it's not perfect.
Right.
And research has shown that it can sometimes incorrectly flag writing by non-native English speakers
Really?
as being AI generated,
Wow.
which obviously raises concerns about fairness. And the accuracy of these tools can vary a lot.
Right.
So relying solely on them isn't really a good strategy.
So are colleges automatically rejecting essays that are flagged by these detectors?
Well, at least the reputable ones aren't.
Okay.
Scholarships 360, for example.
Ah.
They don't just rely on AI detection software,
Okay.
but they do say that essays that get flagged
Yeah.
often lack that depth and personal touch that they look for
Right.
in a winning application.
Okay. So it sounds like being honest about using AI is really important.
It is.
Should students be upfront about it?
Jonah O'Hara from the National Association for College Admission Counseling thinks so.
Okay.
He really emphasizes transparency
Okay.
and suggests that students should be upfront about how they used AI,
Right.
whether it was for brainstorming, outlining, or proofreading.
Okay.
And he believes that colleges should be just as transparent about how they're using AI
Mm-hmm.
in their admissions process.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It does?
And he made an interesting comparison to a thesaurus.
He did. He likened generative AI to a thesaurus
Okay.
because both are tools that, if used incorrectly, can actually weaken a student's own natural voice.
Right. Expert speaker.